In this video, I'm going to discuss Universal Serial Bus. Now, most of you people know that as USB. And in a moment here, I'm going to actually show you a typical USB cord. As you can plainly see here, you've got your one end that looks like this, and the other end that looks like this. And these USBs can come in different shapes and sizes. There are several purposes as to why these cords were created. First of all, your computers were actually being loaded up with serial and parallel ports, and these consumed a lot of power. And the computer manufacturers were getting sick of this, and they said, no, we're not doing this anymore, so they created these USBs. Now, anymore, you can find keyboards that are USB compatible, mice, digital cameras, MP3 players, printers, so that eliminated the serial and parallel ports. It also eliminated a lot of device drivers that were necessary for these printers, for the keyboards, for the mice, for the digital cameras, and even for the MP3 players, and the list goes on and on. So that was another problem that it solved. Keep in mind that when you have device drivers like that, it starts filling up your hard drive. And when you fill up your hard drive with all these device drivers, then you can't fill up your hard drive with anything else. And as wonderful as plug and play is, and I thoroughly endorse plug and play, you get to a certain point and it's like, man, why did you do this? So if you don't want your hard drive filled up with a ton of device drivers, then my personal recommendation is to make sure that your devices are USB compatible. Another problem that started arising, it came from printers and digital cameras and MP3 players and so on and so forth, is that you had to have a ton of plug-ins to charge these suckers up so that you could use them. Well, they eliminated all that by having these USB cords. So what this actually does is it takes power from the computer and charges up your devices. So you can hook up about 10 or 12 different devices and start charging them up through the computer itself. And the computer would have just the one main plug-in into the wall socket. And that frees up a lot of plug-ins when you're dealing with a computer. So that's three problems that a USB cord solves. And it solves a lot of other problems too. I won't get into all of it. You can do the research for yourself. But believe me, Universal Serial Bus cords solve a lot of computer problems in one shot. Now, there is a USB 1 and a USB 2, and you kind of have to watch out for this because some of these devices work off of a USB 2, and although USB 1 and 2 plugins look exactly the same, they don't operate exactly the same. So if you have a USB 1 port and you don't have a USB 2 port, and you try to plug in a USB 2 device into a USB 1 port, it may not work. It might charge, but it may not work. So you may run into a problem like that. Now, I will tell you about one other thing while I'm at it. And this here is a USB card reader. Now, the cards I'm talking about are your media cards, your SD cards, your compact flash cards, your memory sticks, so on and so forth, your extreme digital cards. And I have discussed these media cards in previous videos. First of all, I want to tell you that if you have a micro SD card, make sure you have the proper adapter to go along with it. You can end up with a scenario where you go in to some photo lab, they got a big old kiosk, you take your micro SD, you just toss it on in, and they may have to take that whole kiosk apart just to get your chip out of there. And you don't want that to happen. So it is very important, and this is also true of the Memory Stick Pro Duo. When they have a Memory Stick Pro Duo, there is a reason for it. There's a reason for that name. It is actually two parts. Part 1, Part 2. They go together, then you put them in the machine. Otherwise, they're fishing your memory stick out of the computer, and it becomes a real pain in the butt for them. And you don't want to make an extra task for some photo specialist somewhere because you didn't want to use your adapter to put your card in the kiosk. because it makes a nightmare not only for them, but it also makes a nightmare for you, because then you have to wait until they dig your card out of the slot. And you don't want to wait for them to do that. So just thought I'd mention that. This is a second generation card reader. There are first and second generation card readers. The first generation card readers handle media cards up to 2 gigabytes. Anything higher than 2 gigabytes and you have to use a second generation card reader. These are becoming more commonplace, but they are kind of hard to find at this time. They'll become easier to find as more people start using the 4 and the 8 gigabyte cards. So stay tuned. Believe me, these will become more commonplace. So if your computer has a slot for the media cards, it may not have a slot for the second generation media cards. So keep that in mind. You may have to get one of these. As you can see, this is mine right here. I'm having to use this because I do have a 4 gigabyte card, and 4 gigabyte cards will not be, it cannot be read by a first generation card reader. It's just that simple. Hopefully I've answered a lot of questions here. I will talk about further computer topics in a future video, so stay tuned.